The open world gacha game conundrum. Oh, as you guys know, there have been a lot of gacha games that have released the past 5 years. Okay, we've had Genshin Impact, the Tower of Fantasy, we've had Wuthering Waves, there's been Zenless Zone Zero, now there's Arknight's Enfield. Upcoming, we have Neverness to Everness, we have Ananta, which is not really a gacha anymore, but whatever. We had like the Duet at Abyss, which is kind of not really an open world, but like an open level kind of game. Not really gacha, but had like gacha in it at one point. And we're gonna have a lot more games that are coming out. Rewinding Cadence, there's so many of them. Silver Palace that are upcoming, and a lot of them feature open world aspects, and we're going to be diving into this video by Psychie whether or not open world is the way to go for gachas going forward, and if it is in fact a conundrum. I am very burnt out of open world games. I've massively been enjoying my time playing games that don't feature open worlds, like the new Resident Evil, for example. I just like good level design. That's what I like. I like good level design, set levels, and I don't really care that much for open worlds anymore. So I'm very curious to see what this guy's opinion is on this topic. As we know, I've disagreed with Psychie in the past on a number of his takes. So I don't hate the guy by any means, but I've disagreed with some takes. So I'm very curious to see what he lays out here for gacha games and their open worlds.
Rise of gacha games going mainstream. And
if you haven't subscribed already, you should do. And I'm live every single day on Twitch, Kick, wherever you like streams. Come enjoy the chat, come have fun. We're very nice and polite over here, okay? Ignore all this. We're very, very polite in the streams. So you should come over and swing on by, say hi, and have a good time. Rock up with us.
In 2020, it feels like every major player in this market is trying to get out their own big budget open world type game. Genshin Impact kickstarted it all and pioneered the future of gacha gaming. Tower of Fantasy launched to a fairly positive reception. Even though it mainly only gained popularity with the Chinese player base, it was enough for Hoda Studio to fund their next big project, with Neverness to Everness launching soon. Wuthering Waves launched in 2024 and admittedly had a rough start, but has blossomed into a giant in this industry.
You see, there was a cut. He cut out part of Woo-Up, bro. Woo-Up did have a rough launch.
Enfield has been teased since 2021 and has only begun its conquest to join the big leagues. We've just seen an early test build of Silver Palace, a Victorian-themed open world with a fairly distinct setting. Second test branch for Azure.
I did the beta of Silver Palace. I loved the look of Silver Palace. I did. And I think they are really trying to make the open world interesting. Visually, I think it's one of the most stunning. I do. The Victorian-esque theme was one of the most stunning. And it's very different from what we're used to. The open world fantasy, like lots of green, shrubbery, a kind of vibe we're used to. I liked the building aesthetic, the more industrial done-up look. And I like the fact that you had like property management and a bit of like a tycoon sim, like watch a lot like a tycoon sim involvement with the game. I just think it lacked maybe a bit more integration of interacting with the world. That's the problem with all these open world games, is having that interactability, that immersiveness, seeing people in the world actually interact with things and objects. It's very hard to do on these gacha games that are also meant to be run on mobiles, right? Having NPCs have lives and do stuff in the world is also difficult to do with these games. So there's a lot that's you know, left off the table.
Amelia will be arriving soon. Ananta is still nowhere to be found. Bluepock, the developer for Reverse 1999, is allegedly making an Unreal Engine 5 game. Netmarble wants a slice of the pie too, with Mongol Stardive launching
That's also a game that I played the beta of. The intro was kind of funny.
Probably soon. These are just some recent examples for the arms race of getting out a developer's own game with the potential to go mainstream. It's an emerging market for sure, with some very exciting times ahead. What if Project Moon came in swinging and made an open-world gacha game where you roam the city in a 3D environment, taking in all of its grimy and dark atmosphere? Don't lie to me, I know you want that. While many are concerned about the oversaturation of this niche, accompanied by the rather tribalistic crowd wanting their own favorite game to succeed in place of a competitor's, I'm here to let you know my opinions on the matter. This trend to create more high-budget open-world type gacha games is actually a good thing. I'd say make more of them. Everyone should be making their own big...
In the sense of competition breeds innovation, sure. More people making a certain kind of product would make others try and do better with theirs. We all know that like the release and success of Wuthering Waves kind of forced Genshin to step up its game. It was certain aspects of its gameplay and games and end games and that kind of thing. So yeah, better competition is always going to result in people stepping up to make their own games better. Like, that is true. But I don't think that everyone should just be making their own open world necessarily. I fully believe that game studios should just make good games. I'm not out here saying that like everyone should make an open world game. No, I just think you should just make the best game that you can. And if that happens to be open world, make it the best open world. Okay, don't just do it because everyone should be doing it. You've got to make a good game first.
Releases and have a small slice of the market. On the other hand, I think it's rather foolish.
Like, I think I don't want more slop to be released to the world. That would make me sad. If we released more slop to the world and then it failed, it would just make the whole like genre and market look bad. That's my honest opinion. If everyone just made open world slop and didn't really care about it, it would just, I do think it would taint the whole like gacha space in the terms of the normie perception of like how these games are. I think if we're going to make open world games, we have to make them good. Make them good, make it appeal to a broader market, make them show that like, these games can be played by normies too, not just like gambling addicts that the normies consider us to be. So more is better in terms of competition, but they also have to be good because otherwise people think we're slop.
To pray for the downfall of a game you don't like, because once you peel back the curtains, you'll notice that there's a lot of benefit to having a variety of games at your disposal, and that more competition is good, actually. Taking a brief detour from open world games, I like to give
It's good, but the games also have to be good.
A brief mention to this video's sponsor, Brown Dust 2. I personally done an independent review on the game a while back and had a lot of good impressions on it. Brown Dust 2 is a fantasy RPG with vibrant anime-style 2D art and dynamic turn-based gameplay. It's currently running its 1000 days update, meaning that the game is celebrating its 1000th day since launch. This update brings in story pack number 20, Into the Abyss. Every main story pack contains its own explorable world space with different activities. In addition to some special login bonuses, this patch introduces the new character palette, a debuff extender from the dark element. The outcome of a fight in the game is typically decided within just a few turns, so this new kit has some interesting applications.
Wild.
Also, I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. This game goes quite hard on the fan service element. Probably some of the best in the gacha market. You can expect highly detailed 2D artwork, and this extends to the new costumes that will be introduced in this patch as well. Don't miss the special 1000 day celebration. Brown Dust 2 is available on Google Play, App Store, and of course PC. Use my link in the description or pinned comment to download and start playing the game today. Why don't we start from the beginning and work towards how we got to this point? These days, it feels like a lot of big budget titles that have been brewing in the pot of development and marketing have been dropping like flies in the overall gaming sphere.
Yeah, because High God failed miserably because no one knew what the fuck that game was meant to be. Its trailer was terrible. No one knew what it meant to be. People thought it was Concord 2 because they had the worst marketing on planet Earth. They couldn't communicate what their game even like bloody was. Then when the game released, it had this huge map with like, it was a 3v3. They changed it to a 5v5. It was terrible. Okay? Like these games were just not good.
Never looked at mobile games and can even fathom they can operate on the same level. MiHoYo was the first to change this, of course. They've already beaten everyone to the punch with Honkai Impact in 2016, where its graphical and story presentation was already considered quite advanced back then. They struck gold yet again in 2020. If you ask me, Genshin Impact was a lightning in a bottle. It both coincided with a pandemic that a lot of people were staying home wanting to find a meaningful new hobby to get invested in. At the same time, the quality of the game far surpassed basically any mobile game that had been...
Yeah, I mean, true. Dude, I remember Genshin launch day, I played with my friends. Because I actually was one of those people that did co-op in Genshin. I had friends to play with and we all decided to play Genshin together. And it was kind of fun exploring worlds and doing like the domains together at the time because you didn't have any leveled characters and so you needed the help and it was actually kind of fun. It was actually like enjoyable. And then we don't have it, but I remember I did my first temple and I got Venti and I was like, okay, I guess I'll stay.
released before it.
Co-op was fun. Do you know why? Because it felt like it mattered. Because you couldn't do the domains unless you had help. Especially at the very beginning. Domains used to be hard. You couldn't just walk in and just like do them like at the beginning. And like, so you had to recruit the help of your friends. Now it doesn't matter anymore.
On top of that, it wasn't infested with ads or microtransactions. It had actual gameplay with mechanical depth, a pretty world to explore, and really memorable music. It actually felt like a premium game you would find on a console platform. The pandemic raged on for the next 2 years or so, and Genshin simply rode the wave to solidify its position in this highly lucrative market that it discovered. Now, Genshin has a fairly spotty track record when it comes to player appreciation. Who can forget about the infamous one-year anniversary it had in 2021? Where players basically bullied MiHoYo into submission for 10 extra pulls. However, I don't believe it even mattered all that much in the end. The formula that the game had was rock solid, that a small piece of drama like that has no chance of shaking its foundations. You can dislike MiHoYo for their stingy tactics, but you cannot deny that their framework is what paved the way for future competitors to follow and maybe improve on.
I would argue that a lot of people complaining about stuff in the game has ended up and resulting in them eventually making changes. So we could say like, oh, it didn't really matter, but I kind of think that it does. I don't think anyone, oh, okay, let me reframe that. I don't think anyone could say for certain with absolute 100% certainty, like, oh, that didn't matter. It would have been a success anyway. Like, yes, the game would have been successful, but would it have been as successful, or would it have made stuff that improved the game for the players if people didn't speak up enough? We don't know. I don't think anyone is going to be able to know. I don't think Psychie really could say that either. But there is no doubt that obviously Genshin brought in a new wave of gacha gaming. They definitely initiated a new era in terms of pulling, in terms of what people come to expect when it comes to these types of games. They definitely did set a new framework for new gameplay going forward.
Releasing a new explorable region once a year with a fully voiced and animated storyline, great music, great atmosphere, and side content littered throughout is kinda insane if you think about it. Best of all, they gave these out for free. You don't have to pay a monthly sub to unlock new content like some MMOs. You don't have a weird time gate that prevents you from consuming the new content.
Yeah, and even then with some MMOs, the story can still fucking suck. You pay monthly and the story's still ass. Well, not even that. It's not even you pay monthly, you have to pay for the actual expansion. Let's get that right. It's especially like, wow, you don't just pay monthly, you have to pay for the actual expansion. You're paying for a full price game. And sometimes the story can still suck. So actually, in some regards, MMOs are worse. Not only do you pay monthly, you pay upfront for the privilege of being able to play the expansion and do all the content as well. And even then, it could be ass.
Unless you paid extra. You can actually see your investments when you do spend money on the game put to good use. It wasn't lining the pockets of some executives at Aniplex or something. Realistically, you can experience the full extent of its lore and world building.
Wait, hang on, hold up.
Unlock new content like some MMOs. You don't have a weird time gate that prevents you from consuming the new content unless...
Didn't they do that with like one of the Quest Not Cry quests? Or am I like tripping? Didn't they do that? Or I might be tripping.
Unless you paid extra. You can actually see your investments when you do spend money on the game put to good use. It wasn't...
What does that mean? What does that mean? No, wait, what does that mean?
You can actually see your investments when you do spend money on the game put to good use.
Isn't that what like a lot of people had a problem with? The fact that these companies were making like billions and they were just like, it's the same thing, just like story, characters, and they weren't actually making changes that people wanted. Like, isn't that literally why we complained so much? Because like they were making billions and they still no loadouts. Like the actual things the community wanted, it weren't happening. What do we mean we could see it going into improving the game? Maybe like the first couple patches and like year or two in terms of quality. And like maybe now you could say, oh, they've increased like model fidelity and they've upgraded like quality and stuff like that. But they've made billions. They've made the bank. They fund nuclear reactors now. Yeah, I can see the money going to good use. They fully funded a nuclear fucking power plant. Yeah, yeah, they've really putting it to good use. Spending makes your characters more powerful.
It wasn't lining. Actually see your investments when you do spend money on the game put to good use. It wasn't lining the pockets of some executives at any.
I don't know if he is saying that. That wasn't explicit to what he's saying.
Plex or something. Realistically, you can experience the full extent of its.
I don't think that's what he's. Yeah, I don't. Huh. Okay. A little bit of a coke take, but that's okay.
Lore and world building for free, and the asking price is the optional gacha element to get more characters to expand your gameplay with. Their formula was effective, yes. To get more characters to free, and the asking price is the optional gacha element to get more characters to expand your game.
The optional. I would argue that it's not optional, it's required to actually do, like, the end games. That's not, like, optional. Like, a lot of the content, the gameplay being the end games, it's not optional. It's like, no, if you want to do it, I guess it's optional content, but if you want to do it, you gotta pull for the characters. It was optional once upon a time? Yeah, once upon a time. But these days, the actual main meat and content after you've done the story is not... It's not really optional at that point. It's like, well, if you want to do it, there's a requirement.
Gameplay with. Their formula was effective, yes, but it wasn't a shortcut to success. You actually had to create a really high quality product and maintain it in a consistent pace that satisfies players. It's something that only a more experienced team can accomplish. However, it did demonstrate that this formula can be extremely lucrative if it pays off, and thus opening the Pandora's box.
It definitely was lucrative. Like, there was definitely, like, when the game first launched, there was, like, a lot to do. And especially someone now, like, if you're someone who starts Genshin today and you have fun just exploring the world as is, you have a lot of content that you could play. Like, you have, like, hundreds of hours worth of content that you could play for free right now if you played Genshin today. It just depends on how much you enjoy exploring the world with the characters you have initially.
For this market of mobile games to go mainstream, you can actually see the lasting influence that Genshin's designs left on the market, primarily with its UI and monetization techniques. You'll get the sense that a lot of them have similar layouts, how the gacha rates are sorta similar, and how their update cycles are handled in around the same manner. That being said, MiHoYo never patented any of these ideas, so if the future games can use the framework to create an even better job, I'd say go for it. With that being said, I still think it's worthwhile to point out that without this, you wouldn't have these.
I agree.
Now, given what we know,
I think we would have more 3D open world gachas. I just think they wouldn't be as popular as they are now.
About the currently released games and the upcoming ones in this niche, we know that a number of these titles with an open world 3D anime formula will be joining the list. Now, not all of these games are fully focused on open world elements, but some of them will have a sandbox or a commission-based
God, I love the factory. God, it makes my pee-pee hard.
system that set it apart. After all, you can't expect to create a complete replica of a game. There's still the matter of standing out and carving out a niche within the niche, so that people will have a chance to get
Genshin created update cycles as well. Well, I guess in terms of, like, for the gacha formula, right? Well, in the gacha formula of, like, how they release their stories in terms with, like, everything else, and everyone follows it in the same way. Like, Genshin didn't create update cycles. Like, games have had, like, seasonal content, right? Games have had seasonal content for as long as, like, live service has existed. There's always been seasonal content. Like, you could say that Genshin stole that, right? Genshin took seasonal content and made it into the game. You could say they took from MMOs, like, expansion packs, yearly expansion packs, and put them in the game and made them into update cycles and just made it, like, free or whatever, right? They didn't start seasonal content.
a distinct experience for every game they play. It's also extremely important that despite using the same formula that Genshin originally pioneered, everyone plays games for different reasons, and while there should be a core framework that the game uses, mainly the open world bit,
Genshin also didn't pioneer, like, character swap gameplay. They didn't they didn't pioneer character swap gameplay.
There are a lot of things a game can focus on. Some people want complex mechanics and difficult content, and some just want to turn their brains off after a long day. Some want deep and rich stories and world building to get invested into, and some don't really care about the story all that much. Some want to have long-term satisfying grinds, and some just want to click a few buttons and be done for the day. All of these are valid approaches and reasons to play a certain game. What I'm trying to say is that a lot of these games can look fairly similar on the surface, especially when they're announced with their trailers. They may offer slightly different things that are not apparent on the first look. You might brush off Mongol Stardive as just another Genshin clone, but I'm saying that it's worthwhile to at least try it out to see if it really is just another clone, or does it offer something new. I have no doubt that even more of these ambitious projects will continue to be released into the market, and I'm curious to see if they can stand out in their identity despite having so many options already out right now. Let's finally
I think that is also a problem. Like, I think people are going to start having like gacha fatigue. Like, let's be real, because there aren't going to be people who play like 7 gachas and spend on all of them. People are going to be very selective in what they choose they want to play and spend in. And I have a sneaking suspicion that people who spend are just going to favor a couple of games. You know, they're not suddenly going to part with their money on something that they're not that invested in.
Discuss the situation we have at hand. Regarding this emerging market in mobile gaming, I think everyone can agree on one thing. A monopoly in any industry is bad. It's bad for the consumers, and it's bad for the health of that industry. It allows that company that holds the monopoly to treat their customers however they see fit, since there's no one to keep them in check. What if we were to apply the same
This feels kind of pseudo-intellectual. Is that mean? Is that mean to say?
logic to gacha games? Let's say the almighty Gacha X.
Cause like no, this it's not like it's not like Hoyoverse owns every single gacha, right? It's not like Hoyoverse owns every single gacha. It's not like Hoyoverse has ever had a monopoly on like gacha. That's never been the case. You could say that they have a user base and they've cultivated their own audience and platform, and they released multiple different gacha games of their own accord that people play. And they have an audience base, and their audience will tend to play more Hoyo-related games because they have them all there in one spot, sure. But it's not necessarily like a monopoly. No gacha company's ever had a monopoly on the space. It's about audience share. It's about audience share and audience size. It's not about the influence of a company might have a monopoly over the game. I just think that's the wrong use of the term. I think the conversation is more about audience share than anything else.
Swoops in and takes everyone's players away. Maybe it is just the better product and didn't achieve that through any means of trickery. Now let's imagine that everyone just unanimously agreed that Gacha X should be the one and only game to play, so they leave whatever their game is and only choose to play that one. The result is that no other gacha game except Gacha X shuts down due to lack of funding, and this single title reigns supreme over everyone else. Now that it's got no competitors, what might be a
I just don't know what the point is in discussing this, because this just isn't happening. This isn't happening. Like, there is no gacha monopoly. There's like big audience shares, but there is no single company that's acting like a monopoly.
logical thing for the executives of Gacha X to do now that there's no one standing in the way of their conquest? Well, naturally, they would sneakily jack up the prices and the aggressiveness.
Like, of course, like if there was only one gacha if it was only Genshin, they could do whatever practices they wanted
of its monetization.
And they kind of did that, right? They kind of did that by not really listening to player feedback that much and not improving their end games or anything like that, because they could get away with it. Because what else are people going to play?
I mean, where else are you gonna go? It's my way or the highway. You better suck it up and keep playing, because there's no other game in town. In an ideal world, every player would welcome any new additions to the same gaming niche they occupy, and treat each new game as a new member of a bigger family. However, the reality is not that.
I think it's important to treat every new gacha game that comes out like this to be like, okay, what are the pros and cons? What are the things that we really like about it that we wish other games to implement too? Or like philosophies to implement into other places? And then what don't we like to make sure that it doesn't happen elsewhere? Like both of those things are important.
The world can be a turbulent place right now, and many find reprieve in finding meaning in being part of a virtual community, guarding over the place that they will call a second home. In many cases, they have made the game part of their personality, so any critiques you make against the game will feel like an attack on them as a person. In addition, any new...
We're all too familiar with that one, man. We're all too familiar with that.
Entries to the gacha market will feel like a threat to the game they've already gotten attached onto, and so they will unrelentingly push back against any narrative that the new game in town might be better in any way. I'll tell you how I see this. The companies that run these games are businesses, and you're the consumer. That's all your relationship with these games will ever amount to. Of course, many of these games are really good products, and I'm okay with endorsing them. With the open world gachas being the biggest in this market, the problem of tribalism is magnified more than usual. There are plenty of bots and online influencers that will gladly profit off your emotional vulnerabilities by pushing a one-sided narrative that one game is better than another.
My game's better than your game.
Actually seeing a pretty big example of this unfolding right now, or I guess infolding would be a better term. Love and Deep Space currently has a
my game mentioned! I say my game, I've not played it in ages.
Stranglehold in the female-oriented gacha games niche. No other title even comes close to the degree of quality and fidelity it has. Now, just like how Genshin first...
True, and Infold is a company that's doing a lot of very interesting things. They have very interesting monetization. They have very interesting gacha rated pools, which I think are actually pretty fucking awful. And the thing is, a lot of you people don't play the game, so you don't care about it. Maybe I'll make a video on why the gacha system on Love and Deep Space is one of the worst fucking things I've ever fucking seen. Maybe I'll talk about that at some point. Oh my god, it's rough.
Open the way for gacha games to go mainstream. Love and Deep Space has basically done the same thing, just from a different angle. At its core, I think the company behind it should be commended and rewarded for discovering such a big hit inside of the market. However, due to the fact that Love and Deep Space realistically has no competitor that can threaten them to a significant degree, Infold can really just do whatever they want. Pricier cosmetics and gacha rates, or more aggressive player retention techniques.
Or, I don't know, have incestuous relationships with the MC. Who knows?
If you want a similar experience with actual semi-complex action gameplay and a dating sim with some extremely high-fidelity graphics, where else are you gonna—
I will say Love and Deep Space, I think, has some of the best facial animation and quality of any game ever. Like, that's what they're good at. Infold have absolutely mastered facial design and animation, and like, bro, there is no game that comes close to how well the faces look for Love and Deep Space.
Gonna go. It's just weird that despite the game clearly showing the overwhelming success in this niche, no other company has even seriously tried to break in. However, when the Love and Deep Space killer eventually releases, you bet that there will be a war of tribalism that will happen, just like the—
There's already tribalism within the own lads community. There's already— the amount of infighting in this own community because people main one of the allies, right? Silas is my main. No, Zane's my main. No, Xavier's my main. Oh my god, Silas is a manipulative freak. He's awful. Like, if you like Silas, you're an awful person. Like, it's bad. It's bad. There's already so much like infighting in the community.
One we're seeing right now with the mainstream gachas. So here's something I think everyone needs to hear, regardless of what kind of game you play. If you don't like a certain game or company for whatever reason, that's perfectly fine. What is important to understand is that when you're currently playing a gacha game and another game or company is suddenly doing very well, even if you don't like them, that's actually a net positive for you. When there's competition, it's generally a—
Let me think about that. Let me think about that statement.
Perfectly fine. What is important to understand is that when you're currently playing a gacha game and another game or company is suddenly doing very well, even if you don't like them, that's actually a net positive for you.
It depends how are we judging success? Are they making money? Are they making money? Because you could say, okay, if we're judging success by how much money a game is making, how are they making that money? Are they making money because people are playing and they're being incredibly predatory? Because I would say that's like not a good thing. Like, yeah, they'd be successful, but they're doing it because of an incredibly predatory system. That's not something that I would deem as being a positive that makes the space better. So this really depends on how you are judging success.
When there's competition, it's generally a good thing for consumers.
Like, yes, well, we're making the point, more competition equals better product, usually, sure, yes. But we're also talking about, like, this is also the gacha space where people sometimes have a bit of a problem throwing money at even shit, right? So yes, competition's good overall, but success doesn't mean that we should always be happy with it. That's the thing. Like, he's kind of framing it as like, if a game's succeeding, be happy about it. Like, I don't think that's the correct messaging. I think the correct messaging is like, competition equals good. Yes, fully agree. But a game succeeding doesn't mean we should be happy about it necessarily. Because it depends how you're judging that success. So he's like half right, in my opinion.
You have more choice, you have more options, and you get to be more picky about which game to sink your time and money into. After all, would you rather run into the problem of having too few choices or too many choices? As said before, the original model that Genshin came up with is unique in that you actually have to create a good product in order to succeed, which is something that takes real skill to accomplish. When certain companies prove to the market that they can do a better job at something, naturally, they would be rewarded for it. And so, competition within the market creates more incentives for companies to improve upon their game, to be better than the other options. Let's say that in response to saying the competitor get more spotlight, the company that's making the game you like now gives out a bunch of free rewards to try matching the generosity or quality of its competitor. And now, you have a better experience of playing your favorite game by doing nothing. What I'm trying to say is that you have nothing to gain by praying for the downfall of another game that you don't like. On the contrary, I think there's
Yes, and in some instances, no. Again, it's this thing of like, you gain nothing by preying on the downfall of a game that you don't like. Here's how I see it. For example, if like the preying on the downfall of another game is because they've implemented something or a system that isn't actually like good for the consumers long term or for the player base and the audience, I think preying for the downfall on something isn't like we're looking for it to lose. We just want to make sure that other games don't follow suit with that same mindset, right? Does that make sense? Like, it's not preying on the downfall. It gains you nothing. It's like, what if there is a company or gacha that's like doing something in such a way that is probably not beneficial to the overall like audience or player base that you don't want other games to actually do too? I don't like this. I feel there's too much messaging in this video about like do nothing and just like be happy that slop is being made. Because at the end of the day, truth will out, the best game will win sort of thing. Right? This is kind of the vibe I'm getting from this is like all competition is good, all games are good. Saying nothing, by doing nothing, games will still get better. And I don't know. There are some parts of this I'm really agreeing with it, and other parts I'm just like, I don't know if that's like the correct messaging.
a lot of benefit in adapting the mentality that you should want a competitor to start gaining more ground, because it motivates the game you like to be even better than what it already is. Succeed even harder, so my game will treat me better. If the developers already treat you very well, better than the competition, well, that's a win for you as well. Again, you now have a better experience by doing nothing. But do you know what's not a good scenario for you? What isn't a win is if one game monopolizes the whole market, because by then there will be no competitors to keep a game accountable if they go over the edge and start treating its players poorly. The only winner here is the developer, who now has no reason to improve the game.
Like,
However,
I don't disagree.
given all this
I don't disagree with this initial philosophy. Obviously, more competition good. Sure. At its core, sure.
there is one possible nuance I want to bring up before closing the discussion. The thing about open worlds is that it's very easy to give off the impression that it's a big game with all sorts of content you can do. However, it's also worth keeping in mind that a big game may not be what everyone wants. Let's also face an ugly but unavoidable truth. Maintaining a live service game can take up a good chunk of your time when you want to fully clear its content to max out on your enjoyment or in-game rewards. Considering that the 6-week update schedule has more or less been normalized, new content being delivered at that pace is no easy feat, even on the consumer side. You would have new content to look forward to quite often. You can probably play like 2 or 3 of these if you happen to have a lot of time on your hands, but approaching 4, 5, or 6, that's pushing it. You either have to lose out on certain events or take breaks every now and then. Everyone will have finite time for hobbies, and when the number of options in the same market begins to bloat, you'll have to make some choices. Do I stop playing a game for now in order to focus on another? Trying to maintain every single one of these games as they come out is extremely unrealistic, and will probably burn you out if you tried it.
Yeah, and people will always just kind of main 1 or 2 games and then play the others like very casually. That's just kind of always how it's always been.
This means as studios join this market, they will eventually reach a breaking point that, due to the finite amount of players that can exist at any point, some games that either don't offer much new things or those that stick to too safe of a formula will eventually be forced to face the reality that not everyone can play every game that comes out. Despite this, I think this is a good problem to have.
That's why it's important to don't just pump out open world games, pump out just good games. Just make good games. That's my advice to any gacha company. Just make good games.
At least for consumers. The formula is still there, except now, from the perspective of developers, you have to put in your unique spin on it to separate your work from the crowd. It pushes developers to make even more creative endeavors to stand out, since if they don't, they'll naturally be churned out in this saturating market. I think the worry that the gacha market will be filled up with slop games that copy the same theme and tones as the ones before it isn't too big of an issue, since people will be more critical against the game.
Well, yeah, they'll be bad and people just won't play them. But it also gives a really negative impression on gacha as a whole the more slop that comes out. I don't want companies to just pump out slop. I don't want us to be even more of a laughing stock, than we already are to people.
Games that don't provide the experience on the same level as the ones before it or put some innovation behind it. Again, it's hard to argue against the notion that having too many choices is worse than not having any choices at all. If you ask me, this is the best state that gacha gaming has been in. I'm gonna end the discussion by saying something that may sound a little uncomfortable. You don't owe anything to the company that you're playing their game for, and they don't owe you anything. Gaming is a hobby. A video game cannot and should not be part of your personality or identity. If you want to support a game with your time and money, then there's nothing wrong with that. As a customer, you are supporting a good product that has brought a lot of value to you. At the end of it all, I think you should be choosy in which video game to play. So with the expanding catalog of free games you have at your disposal, I think there's a lot of value to shop around and try out as many as you can. So I say this again. No, I don't think the gacha gaming space has too many open world type games. On the contrary, make more of them. Thank you for joining me today on this discussion video. Let me know what you think of the matter down below.
Sure.
If you want to catch more discussions and reviews...
Sure, make more of them, but just make good games, for the love of God. For the love of God. Too many slop muddies the waters and you can't recognize quality anymore, which further leads to overall reduction in quality of the entire industry since people get away with producing slop. That's the thing. That's why it's good to criticize games, right? I know this whole notion of if it's bad, people just won't play, whatever. It's just why it's good to criticize games, because all these companies keep pumping out these open world, whatever kind of gachas, and people don't criticize them. Other companies will just continue to make slop. And then the issue is people spend money on these games. I don't want people to be spending money on slop. I don't want people to waste their time. I don't want people to waste their money. Because at the end of the day, yes, these are games, but these are games that people actually invest real world shit into. And I would rather we have quality and people put their money to something good. Not let's just make hundreds of slop gachas and people spend their money and then they end of service. I don't want that to happen, funnily enough. I think actually we should have more quality control when it comes to these games, specifically. Simply for the fact that they really want you to be spending money on them. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I just have a different perspective on this whole thing, personally. But I understand more competition's always good, but that doesn't mean that every company should be making a game and make it open world and, guys, bullfrog character with your money. I don't think that we should be doing that. I don't. I very much disagree with that notion that everyone should be doing it and it shouldn't matter and the cream will rise to the top, because that doesn't always happen. And sometimes it is good to like call things out and call bad things out at the end of the day. That's just kind of how I see it. That's kind of my perspective on this whole thing. Guys, if you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate y'all. I'm live almost every single day where you like to watch streams, Twitch, Kick, all that good stuff. I appreciate y'all. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.